He is immigration attorney, adjunct professor of law, SMU, Eric Cedillo. How are you, Eric?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good having you back. Fewer family visas approved. Donald Trump toughens vetting of immigrants. Where are we on immigration and DACA? Where do you see us, Eric?
Well, hopefully with respect to DACA, we see something happening this month. It's just something that we really need to do. Lots of these young people are falling out of status. They're losing their employment, and a lot of these guys are professionals. We're talking about lawyers and doctors and nurses, and we need to do something about that real quickly. And hopefully the strong rhetoric from the administration and even the Democrats, they come to a resolution in terms of taking care of the DACA recipients, specifically in some sort of piecemeal measure. The greater outlook in terms of immigration reform, I don't know that we're really ready to address that in these midterm election cycle, but we'll see what happens.
I mean, again, I think most people would say for the DACA, okay, I'm good with that. We've messed this up for a long time. Don't take it on the kids that got here when they were 4. I think we all can agree the 800,000 there. But I don't know what the angst and argument would be, Eric, and maybe you and I disagree on this, but what is wrong with really securing our borders and really making it difficult for illegal people to come to our country?
No, I think we're totally in agreement with respect to that. We do need to be careful about who comes in, legally. We want to make sure that our borders are protected. I just don't believe logistically that a physical wall is the answer, in terms of the cost, in terms of the realities of what's happening. But no doubt, we need to be careful about how we're doing that. There has been a huge reduction in the numbers of individuals migrating from our southern borders into the United States. I'm sure a lot of that has to do with the rhetoric here in the States and from the administration. So, is it something that we need to address with billions and billions of dollars? Probably not. We need to get past the rhetoric and start dealing with the realities of what's happening. But the distinction between individuals coming across our borders and the kids who are already here and have contributed and lived, that needs to be a distinction, I think, that more Americans need to take into consideration.
Probably not going to be just DACA. They're going to want, this chain migration, everything else folded into this thing. That's why there's going to be a delay. And again, you're right, Eric, it's midterms, and it's all about winning back power. This is what bothers me so much about Washington. It's so much about me and who's controlling versus what's good for the DACA and the 800,000. These guys in Washington, Republican or Democrat, they need to fix stuff, not worry about how long they can stay.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, the Democrats are to blame as well. The need for, a pathway to citizenship. I don't know that we necessarily need that right away. And if it's a deal breaker, if it means the loss of these individuals in terms of employment, in terms of being sent back to a country they don't know, we don't necessarily need that. So it's a situation that is going to come to a head real soon. We've got budget to deal with, so these kids need to be taken into consideration. So we'll see what happens.
Well, it's obviously I can't. And again, there are people that believe that you broke the law, and we are a country of laws. However, when you goof it up for half a century, you've really got to say, okay, this time, Ronald Reagan, 86, 87, we did kind of an amnesty thing. I just think that the people that don't come out of the shadows when given an opportunity, and particularly the criminal element, they've got to be taken out. You cannot keep that. And the sanctuary stuff, I don't understand. I don't understand how you protect criminals under the auspices of we're compassionate.
Yeah, well, sanctuary cities, the definition of what that is and what we can do as localities, a lot of this stuff is voluntary in terms of what's there. So, in terms of calling it a sanctuary city as opposed to what works for your city or state, kind of we're at odds. But no doubt that we need to be getting rid of the criminal element. I think Obama, quite honestly, did a pretty good job of that, and that's why we're kind of in a situation now where we're looking to go a step further. And Donald Trump is certainly ramping that up with respect to changing, the legal migration, the legal immigration, and denying, access to something that we've had for a very long time. We see it, with respect to the RAISE Act. The Senate tried to pass a bill which which kind of totally revamps and shapes the number of legal migrants, cutting it by 50%. So we kind of see what's happening, from a legislative standpoint, and that's being translated into an administrative process with respect to the reduction in the numbers of I-130 applications.
You hopeful?
I am hopeful for the DACA recipients. I think they're the ones that we really need to address quickly. And like you say, there's bipartisan support for assisting them. I just hope that it is immediate, because we are literally they're losing status by the hundreds every day, and they're losing those jobs, which is the big thing. They're not able. Some of these folks are taking care of families, and we need to take that into consideration. These kids need to be taken care of sooner, absolutely, rather than later. So I'm hopeful with respect to that over the next couple of months. I'm not as hopeful for 2018 in terms of total immigration reform, but perhaps in 19 we might actually see something. I just see a lot of piecemeal legislation happening this year, and kind of putting our finger in the dike and hoping we don't catch the flood. We'll see.
Appreciate your insights. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
SMU, Eric Cedillo, SMU adjunct professor, immigration attorney.
1320 WILS, your morning wake up. The president Monday in Nashville, Tennessee, and after all the whirlwind explosions over the weekend on Twitter, this was a speech centered on agriculture. You would think that talking about ag in the United States, rural ag, that there would be a heavy reference to immigration too, and maybe a pain to immigration reform. That really wasn't what this was about, and yet immigration remains at the forefront. The president wants the border wall. He wants Congress to stop illegal immigrants from sponsoring, the extended family members coming here, the so-called chain migration, saying that poses a threat to national security. Some reporting now by Reuters, the European agency here, that shows that there has been a drop, and maybe an intended drop done by the government here in that family migration by about a quarter over the first 9 months of 2017. The numbers that are out like that. Let's talk about it this morning with Eric Cedillo, who's back on the show. Eric's an immigration attorney, and he's an adjunct professor of law at SMU in Dallas. Eric, good morning.
Good morning.
So, less family visas here. Concerted effort by the government to approve. It looks like applications are about the same, but down about a quarter. Is this the government saying, we're just going to not approve these going forward? What do you think?
It looks like it. The director of USCIS, Francis Cisna, says that there was no official policy, but it looks like that's what's happening. There as you had mentioned, 25% reduction from last year, and you're seeing an actual decrease of about 70% for individuals being sponsored from outside the country. So it looks like there's an effort, although informal, to reduce the legal migration in the applications for the I-130s. We're seeing that, and it'll probably continue under this administration.
Is there much you can do about, you're an immigration attorney, is there much you can do about that? Or if that's coming from on high and they're just not approving them, are you stuck?
Yeah, you're stuck. You're at the whim of the government in terms of those approvals. You can simply provide the information, perhaps put your packets together that don't allow for the request for additional evidence. But beyond that, the waiting times and everything else, you can't push the government to expedite things in that way. So, you're just in a holding pattern.
Does the president make a good point when he, he refers to the Bangladeshi man who set off that pipe bomb a few weeks ago in New York City, and saying this is the danger of chain migration? I mean, does he have a point there, or is it isolated and one-off in your mind?
Yeah, you're always going to have a situation where you're going to have those individuals who are going to do what they're going to do. But in the overall scope of how things work, it's not as simplistic as that. You do have individuals who are U.S. citizens who can sponsor immediate relatives in that capacity. Chain migration, to the extent that it's being presented, that can take years. If you're trying to sponsor an individual brother or sister from another country, that could take 20 years, depending on the country of origin.
All right, Eric Cedillo here, who's only had him for a short time this morning, immigration attorney, adjunct professor of law at SMU. There are a lot of things at play with this. There's the chain migration thing, but when you think about that, I mean, back in the day of my own family, people coming to this nation, my dad's side, my mom's side, I mean, it's staggered, But the most recent bunch of that would have been, the Italian and the Irish Americans at the end of the the 19th century and going into the 20th century, and it's really not that long ago. And bringing your family over, as many as you could, or sending for them was, it was typical. So that was chain migration in a sense as well. Still, they had to go through Ellis Island or the other ports of entry, which that was, not the only one, but certainly was now the one we know the best. And there wasn't as much of a worry then that you're going to bring in terrorism, you're going to try to bring down the country, but that's the fear in 2018, isn't it? Isn't it? Or is it just jobs? Or is it a combination thereof? Are we worried about the job factor overall for those who would come at the lower end of the socioeconomic spectrum? Or is that now ramping up because we know that a lot of the people coming in are coming here for good jobs, and we want more of them? We've had a shortage of medical personnel, so we've gone to places like Pakistan and other nations, India, to bring them in at pretty good salaries. Immigration here, it's not all cut and dry. It's not all black and white. There are shades of gray with this, and you wonder, with 2018 being an off-year election year, have any hope for immigration reform, or is it just off the table and going to be held off for another time amidst talk of the wall and et cetera? Morning Wake Up, 1320 WILS.